Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Jirou was Izuku's girlfriend, part 1. So before we start, go check out the author of this fanfic, Akakis22, link is in the description, also subscribe to our channel, and like this video, so let's begin the video. Midoriya, I need to ask you a question, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Sure Jirou-san. How long have you had All Might's power? Alright, Team 5 and Team 6, head down to your starting locations and get ready for my signal. Aizawa told his students as he opened the doors to the training area. Okay, so what's our plan for Midoriya? Jirou inquired while she adjusted the amplifiers on her costume in preparations for their upcoming drill. Currently the first-year students of UA. The hero course is undergoing yet another practical training session. The students had been randomly split into pairs and were given the objective of finding and securing a hostage dummy before the other team could do the same and take it back to their starting point. Well, I was hoping to pick your brain about what you think is best, Jirou-san. The boy replied, twiddling his fingers, trying not to make direct eye contact with the girl. Seriously? All that power and intelligence and he can't even muster up the nerve to talk to me directly? She thought to herself as she gave the boy a scowl. It wasn't that she disliked Midoriya, on the contrary she respected him quite a bit. Even though he's without a doubt shown the most improvement out of anyone in their class and has the academic scores to match, she couldn't help but feel irritated at this bashful and non-confident act he put on almost every day in class. Jirou knew she wasn't exactly a social butterfly like Ashido or Hagakure, but she definitely wasn't as meek and shy as the boy walking to her right. Well, we're going up against Kaminari and Kirishima, so it shouldn't be too difficult. All we have to do is keep our distance from Kirishima and make Kaminari go over his wattage limit and it should be a piece of cake. I agree with Jirou-san. The problem is that none of us know where the hostage is located. If this were a straightforward fight, then our plan of attack would be simple. But seeing as we have to find the hostage and keep the others at bay, proves to be a problem. The boy replied. So do you have anything in mind? Yes, it's a bit of a dirty trick, but with our quirks we should be able to pull it off. Oh? I'm all ears, she said as the green-haired boy began explaining his strategy to her. Begin. The loudspeakers screamed across the training area, signaling for both teams to advance. Without hesitation, Kaminari and Kirishima began sprinting into the training area to reach their target first. The duo was moving at a fast pace to try and cover as much ground as possible, making sure to keep a lookout for their opponents. The hostage was in a general location for all of the groups to keep things standardized, but the teams still had to search for and locate the hostage dummy before they could secure and extract it. After about 5 minutes of running, Kirishima and Kaminari came up on the location of where the hostage was being held. The two quickly split up and searched the grounds for their objective, all while keeping a close eye out for the other team. Kirishima, I found it. Kaminari shouted, holding up the mannequin from behind a building that was made to look like a small bank. Sweet, let's bail before those other two show up. The hardening quirk user replied as the duo regrouped before making the run to return to their start point. Looks like Jirou and Midoriya got lost along the way. The boy with yellow hair said with a grin, receiving a quick chuckle from his partner. Oh well, that just means it's an easy win for us. The electricity quirk user threw the dummy onto his back and boys quickly abandoned the area. The duo began sprinting until they were less than a minute away from their starting point. All they had to do was make one more turn, and then they would be home free. As they turned the corner and gained sight of their gate, the pair began to jump for joy, knowing that they would get an easy grade for the day. But that joy would not last too long. Heartbeat fuzz. Elware smash, Air Force. The simultaneous shouts were as all the two boys heard before the ground began to shake under them, causing the pavement to completely shatter and crumble, making mounds that cut off their path. At the very same time, a strong surge of wind hit the ground 12 meters behind them, causing a similar effect as the side in front of them. Shit. Kirishima yelled as he turned his head to the right, locking eyes with Jirou, who was in the process of standing up after taking her amplifiers out of the ground. It's an ambu. Kaminari wasn't able to get out the rest of his sentence before, as he found himself face first into the ground, only to notice a flash of green electricity above him as the weight of the mannequin was lifted off of his back. Before the two were able to fully process what just happened to them, a loud sound wave came from Jirou's direction, completely disorienting the heroes in training before they both fell to the ground. Within a couple of seconds, Midoriya was next to Jirou. The purple-haired girl quickly jumped onto his back as he carried the mannequin bridal style. Full cowling, he screamed before he darted off with his partner and the hostage in the opposite direction of where the two boys were previously heading. Kirishima regained himself just enough to see the flashing electricity of his green-haired classmate in the distance, already too far away to chase after. Damn, getting your hostage taken away is so unmanly. he said with a tear in his eye while slamming his fist into the ground, realizing that they already failed. That was a pretty smart plan for Midoriya. Jirou said as she adjusted herself on the boy's back to make herself more comfortable. It really wasn't all that much. It certainly wasn't very heroic. He replied, continuing to leap from rooftop to rooftop. It wasn't, but that doesn't make it any less brilliant. Letting those two do all the hard work while avoiding an unnecessary fight, grabbing the hostage, and subduing your enemies. That sounds pretty heroic to me. I guess you're right, Jiro-san. Hey, the gate is right over there. He replied as he adjusted his speed. Hang on, landing isn't exactly the most comfortable thing in the world. The girl heeded his warning while he descended onto the ground, causing a bit of force to vibrate through her body. By the time she looked up, the two of them had already passed the gate. Team 5 wins. Was what she heard from the loudspeakers as she regained her bearings from the landing. She quickly dismounted off of her teammate's back to get back onto her feet and dust herself off. The impact from their attacks caused quite a bit of dirt to fly into the air, getting all over the girl. She looked up to see the green-haired boy doing something similar after setting the hostage mannequin down on the ground in front of him. Man, this dweeb is really something else. No wonder he's one of the best students in our class. She thought to herself as she walked over to her partner. Hey, Midoriya. Yes, Jiro-san. He said as he turned around. Good job out there. You too, Jiro-san. He replied with a smile. The exchange abruptly ended as the students heard the loudspeakers activate once again. This time it was Aizawa telling all of them to return to the viewing area that the rest of the class was in. Without a thought, the students made their way back. Jirou was extremely pleased with the result of this training session. She'd be lying to herself if she didn't think that she was lucky to be paired with one of the better strategists in the class. Even though the plan was simple, it was highly effective. They made their way to the target, secured the hostage, and made a clean getaway in under 15 minutes. And the best part was that she didn't even need to break a sweat, seeing as Midoriya carried her to their ambush spot and back. By the time the two entered the viewing area, they were swarmed and congratulated by their classmates, minus Bakugo, Satu, Mineta, and Todoroki, who already made their way down to the training area for their round. Although Jirou tried her best to keep up her aloof exterior, she noticed the ridiculous amount of blush coming from her partner's face as he tried to take a few steps back from the crowd of people in front of him. Seriously, what's with this guy? A few minutes ago he was acting like the most confident and calm guy in the world, now he's redder than a ripe tomato. She thought while another annoyed scowl came to her face. This time, deciding to just pay it no mind. The rest of the day was uneventful. After everyone completed their training exercises, the students went back to the classroom to finish the rest of the school day. The hours seemed to drone on before the final bell rang, giving Jirou some much-needed mental relief from ectoplasm and his maths lesson. She wasn't doing particularly badly in the class, but this was one of those special occasions where her brain was almost worse than Kaminari's. After a few minutes of packing up her things into her backpack, Jirou joined Ishido and Hagakure in their walk back to the dorms. The purple-haired girl was ready to get back so she could listen to a new rock album that she downloaded on her phone that morning. As she reached into her jacket pocket, she noticed that her device wasn't where she thought she put it, a quick panic coming over her. Hey, I think I left my phone in the classroom. I'll catch up with you guys in a few, she said to Ishido and Hagakure before she darted back in the direction of the class. After a good 2 minutes of searching the classroom, Jirou finally found her cell phone under her desk. Evidently she must have dropped it before walking out of the classroom. Relief washing over her shoulders as she noticed that the screen was still in one piece. The earphone jack user quickly made her way out of the classroom and back down the hall, trying to make sure that she caught up with her friends. As she made her way past the teacher's lounge that was on her left side, she noticed the unmistakable voice of a certain broccoli-headed student. I can only handle 20% right now. Well, actually it's more like 15. I can use it at 20, but it causes some serious pain. Midoriya's voice said as walked past the door. Even so, you're definitely improving at a fast pace. You should be able to completely control One for All within a few months at this rate. Another unmistakable voice said in response. This one was none other than All Might, the now retired symbol of peace. What the hell? Jirou thought to herself, pausing next to the door. Why is Midoriya talking to All Might in the teacher's lounge? She questioned herself as she stopped herself to get closer against the wall. Although Jirou typically wasn't one to eavesdrop on private conversations, her quirk gave her superhuman hearing. Any whispered conversation within 10 meters of her could be heard as though the concerned parties were right next to her. This time was no different. Along with the fact that her curiosity got the better of her, she slid herself closer to the door so she could hear the two of them better. Like the rest of the students in her class, Jirou was very aware of the relationship between All Might and Midoriya. Ever since the start of the school year, the teacher would be seen having private talks with the young boy at random times throughout the day, along with treating him differently from the other students. This was enough to cause a few interesting rumors about the two to spring up every now and then. Some of the students believed that Midoriya could possibly be the son of the retired hero, with how much they were seen together and their similarities in quirks. Jiro would be lying if she said that she didn't somewhat believe it. I honestly think I'm finally making a move in the right direction, especially with my new fighting style. The boy continued. Young Midoriya, I'm happy that you've finally found your own path. It makes me all the more glad that I chose you as my successor for One for All. All Might replied once more. One for All? What are they talking about? She questioned as she focused her hearing. I'm going to make you and Gran Torino proud, I promise. Gran Torino? Isn't that the name of the hero who fought with All Might back in Camino Ward? You've already made me proud, my boy. I wouldn't have given you this quirk if I didn't think that you weren't up for the task. All Might said, with a cough following his words. At this moment the record scratched in Jiro's head. What the hell did he just say? The girl said to herself as she just tried to make sense of his words. What did he mean by that? She questioned once again. I know, but I want to make sure that I live up to what you've built here. Now that you're retired and you don't have One for All anymore, I feel like I need to pick up the pace. Why do they keep saying One for All? What is Midoriya's quirk called? And what did All Might mean when he said he gave it to him? Don't push yourself trying to imitate me, young Midoriya. The best thing for you to do right now is just move at your own pace. The power is already inside of you, you just need to make sure that you work hard and keep yourself healthy. Yeah, you're right. Well, I have to finish grading these papers from today's training exercise. You did fantastic out there, by the way. Avoiding a big fight and coordinating a quick ambush like that with young Jirou was a brilliant idea. Thank you, All Might, that means a lot. Now you better get going. I'm sure you have studying to do. Right, I'll see you later then. Midoriya said as he turned around to make his way out the door. Jirou's heart was beating faster than she thought was possible. Of all the conversations that she's accidentally listened in on, she knew that this was one she was not supposed to hear. She didn't know exactly what to make of the information that was overheard, but from the tone of the two in the room and the rhythm of their hearts during the talk she knew it was all the truth. Damn, of all the times I had to be nosy, she screams internally, backing away from the wall so that she wouldn't make a sound. She could hear that Midoriya was on the way out of the room based on his footsteps and knew that she only had a few seconds before he would walk out of the door. The last thing she wanted to happen was for the two to come face to face right now. Without a second thought, the earphone jack user sprinted around the corner as quietly as she could before hiding behind a trash can. As she crouched down to hide her form from her classmate, her quirk allowed her to hear the boy's footsteps going in the opposite direction, bringing her a small bit of relief. She waited a few moments before standing up and making a beeline for the emergency exit on the other side of the hall. The purple-haired girl sprinted down the steps while trying to keep her heart rate down. I need to make sure that Midoriya doesn't see me, she thought to herself as she came up on the door. The girl poked her head outside to ensure that no green-haired boys were in the vicinity. If I go around the building, I should be able to get back to the dorms without him seeing me, she said out loud, making one more check before stepping outside of the doorway. Without hesitation, the purple-haired girl darted out of the building and began jogging towards the directions of her dorm, hoping that she would avoid her classmate on the way. This is not good, was all that she could say, hoping to make it to her building in a hurry. Hey Jirou, what took you so long? Did you find your phone? Ashido asked as she turned around to see the earphone jack user who just walked into the common area. Yeah, it took me a minute to find it, she replied, trying to hide her heavy breathing. Awesome, well get over here, we have some juicy gossip to talk about. Sorry Mina, I'm actually not feeling too well right now. I think I'm just going to head up to my room. Oh alright then, I hope you feel better, Ashido replied as she turned around to face the other girls in the class. Going back to their previous conversation. Thanks, Jirou said before giving a quick nod and making her way to the elevator. The purple-haired girl was still in a very noticeable state of panic. Not only had she overheard parts of a very serious conversation between one of her classmates and teachers, she just sprinted back to her dorms so as to avoid the green-haired boy. Her mind was still reeling from the information that she had heard just a few minutes ago, not sure what to make of it. One for All Might giving his quirk to Midoriya, the boy only being able to use a fraction of it. All of this was just too much for her to completely wrap her head around, and she needed to go somewhere quiet so that she could think. As the elevator doors opened, Jirou continued her brisk pace back to her room, only needing to make it a few more meters before she made it to Sanctuary. Hey Jirou. A familiar voice called out to the purple-haired girl, causing her to turn around. It was Uraraka, her brunette classmate. Yeah, what's up Uraraka? She responded while doing her best to not look like a mess. Have you seen Deku-kun anywhere? She inquired, the question causing Jirou's heart to race. No, I haven't seen him since class ended, she responded, having to make an effort to appear aloof and not as flustered as she really was. Oh okay, well thanks. See you later. Yeah, you too. I wonder if she knows anything about this. Jirou questioned internally as she continued her walk back to her room. When she dropped herself onto her mattress, the purple-haired girl let out a deep sigh, trying to calm her mind down so that she could properly organize her thoughts. To be honest, she had no idea where to begin. Too many things were just not adding up for her. Could All Might really have given his quirk to someone else? Why Midoriya? Why could he only use a certain amount of it before he hurt himself? How long has it been since he gained this quirk? What exactly was the relationship between those two? All of these questions were swarming around her head as she tried to piece together what she already knew. Unfortunately, her mind was too cluttered with thought to string anything together. She sat up and made her way to her desk, reaching down into one of the drawers to pull out a pen and paper while having a seat, hoping that writing her thoughts down would help her organize them a little better. Alright, so let's go over what I know. Undoing the cap on the pen before she began writing. All Might possibly gave Midoriya his quirk. Midoriya can only use 20% before he causes harm to himself. Also, he's apparently made a lot of progress since receiving the quirk. She continued as she kept making bullets on the paper that was in front of her. This went along for the better part of 20 minutes before the girl finally realized that she was done writing. The sheet of paper was completely filled with every last thought about the green-haired boy that she could come up with, everything from since the start of the school year. Even with the notes in front of her that detailed everything that she could think of, a few things still weren't adding up. If all of this were true, why exactly did All Might pass on his quirk to Midoriya? If All Might's quirk could really be given to other people, then who gave the quirk to him? And who else knew about this? Obviously this was a major secret between at least the two of them. That made complete sense, seeing as if the public found out about something like this, it would be national news. Also, judging by Midoriya's mention of Gran Torino and the fact that the elder hero was present with All Might during his final battle against that villain, she guessed that he probably had some knowledge about this situation as well. All of this was almost too much for the heroine in training to think about as she dropped her head to desk in defeat, exhausted from the mental gymnastics that she was trying to pull off to piece together this mystery. Maybe I should just ask him about it directly. The girl began thinking out loud again as she picked up her head. But if I do that, then I don't exactly know what would come of it. She continued while scratching her head, annoyed by how complex this was going to be. Mentally going back and forth over whether or not she should even bring it up with her green-haired classmate. She didn't know the kid very well at all, and judging the boy by how shy and bashful he acted on a daily basis only means that if she were to confront him directly about this would cause the boy to have a breakdown. Jirou knew that she couldn't just sit on this information and not say anything about it, doing so would cause her to go insane. Screw it, I need to get some water. Deciding that taking a break would be best for her at the moment. After a quick walk downstairs, Jirou made her way into the kitchen where she was able to get a bottle of water out of the refrigerator. She cracked open the drink and started taking sips as turned around to make her way back to her room, not doing a good job paying attention to what was in front of her as she was distracted by her thoughts. Without any warning, she felt herself run into something or someone when she turned the corner, causing her to fall to the ground. Watch where you're going, cable ears. Bakugo shouted while he looked down at his shirt, which now had a considerable amount of water on it. My bad, I didn't see you. She replied as she stood herself up. Yeah, it was your bad, you extra. Try opening your eyes next time. Geez dude, it was an accident. Chill out. TCH, stupid asshole. Was his only response as the explosion quirk user turned around to walk away. Wait, he's known Midoriya for a while. I wonder if he knows anything about this. Hey Bakugo, do you mind if I ask you a question? What the hell do you want now? You've known Midoriya for a while, right? Since before high school. What's it to you? Why are you asking me about fucking Deku? I was just wondering, his quirk is pretty strong. So what if it is? Has he always been that strong? Jirou asked the boy. Although it was only for a split second, she could see the blonde-haired boy's eyes widen before going back to his usual angry scowl. He didn't bother giving a response, instead he just gave a growl and turned back around, continuing his walk to wherever he was going, his heartbeat increasing just enough so that Jirou could notice it. Okay, he definitely knows something. She said internally as she stood stationary for a second. She knew the two boys had some sort of history, so any dramatic changes in Midoriya, let's say receiving a super powerful quirk, would definitely have been noticed by Bakugo. Deciding to leave it at that, the purple-haired girl made her way back up to her room. Even though her curiosity was still piqued, she realized that she probably wouldn't get any answers anytime soon. On top of that, she had homework and studying that she needed to finish before bed. Electing to push everything Midoriya related to the back of her mind for now, Jirou chose to focus on her schoolwork for now. But one thing was clear to her, she wanted answers, and she was going to get them. The following school day was as easygoing as it could get. Fridays were typically the days of the week where the classes just reviewed previous lessons and watched over footage of whatever hero training they did the day before, allowing the students to critique and analyze others' performances so that everyone could learn and improve for later on. Jirou and Midoriya, along with Bakugo, Todoroki, Iida and Yaoi Rozu, all received positive feedback on their performances. It wasn't very often that Jirou found herself in the same category as the top 5 students in the class. She took a moment to steal a quick peek at Midoriya as he blushed over the compliments he received for his actions during the day's previous training session. By the time lunch came around, one was split off into their usual groups. Midoriya was sitting with Iida, Uraraka, Sayu, and Todoroki, while Jirou was with Ishido, Hagakure, Kirishima, and Kaminari. The whole day Jirou was trying her best to pay attention to the lessons, but she couldn't help but have her mind go back to the situation regarding a certain green-haired classmate of hers. She looked over to the table where he and his friends were. They appeared to be laughing at a joke that seemed to be at the expense of Iida. Maybe I'm just overthinking all of this. Hey Kyoka, you know you're staring again, right? Hagakure said, interrupting the girl's thoughts. Huh? At Midoriya, you're staring at him again. You've been doing it all day. What are you talking about, Toru? She inquired with a perplexed look on her face. The entire day since we went over the footage of yesterday's training session, you've been stealing peeks at Midoriya. Is that so? Does our friend here have a crush? Ishido interjected. Very funny, what makes you think I was even looking at Midoriya? Well, I doubt that you were looking at Iida, and even though Todoroki is totally handsome, all I remember you saying is that he's not your type. Okay, come on girl, spill it, you have a thing for him, don't you? Ishido said as she slid over to Jirou, giving her a sly grin. You guys are crazy. I mean, when you think about it, Midoriya's kind of a catch if you ask me. Kirishima stated, deciding to enter the conversation much to Jirou's dismay. I know he's kind of plain looking, but he's wicked smart and stupid powerful. Speaking of which, he's gotten a lot better at using his quirk too, hasn't he? Kaminari asked the hardening quirk user. Yeah, I mean I didn't get to see him take out that overhaul dude after I got knocked out during the raid we did with the pros. But, from what I heard, he mopped the floor with him. It's crazy considering how hopeless he was at the start of the year. He couldn't even use his quirk without breaking something. Yeah, it's still weird how that used to happen to him. I've never seen someone with a quirk that had such a major drawback. Well, he did say that he was a late bloomer. I remember him saying his quirk didn't actually manifest until he graduated middle school. Kirishima said as he took a bite out of his food. The mention of this causes Jirou to direct her attention towards him. Really? He said that? She inquired. Yeah, but I guess with that much power it takes a while to get used to. Ooh, Jirou, you should totally ask him out. Mina said, rejoining the conversation. Seriously, did you not listen to anything I just said? Sorry, but I think you two would look super cute together. Plus he can help you out in maths. Hagakure joked to the earphone jack user. Jirou sighed as the conversation went on like this for the remainder of lunch. Although she enjoyed joking around with her friends like this, conversations about relationships tend to go off the deep end, especially if Ishido was involved in them. Jirou did appreciate the possible new information about Midoriya relating to his quirk. If he didn't have his quirk until after middle school like Kirishima said, then that was just another piece of the puzzle. The rest of the school day went pretty smoothly. Soon enough Jirou found herself in her bed, listening to the new Deep Dead album she initially planned to play for herself yesterday. Thanks to her specially made headphones, she didn't have to worry about picking up outside noise or conversations. After about an hour of laying on her bed, doing nothing, she decided that it was time to get up and stretch her limbs, along with getting some air into the room. She made her way over to the window and flung the doors open, taking in the breeze that hit her face immediately. As she took in the sight of the campus from her window, she looked down to see none other than a certain broccoli-headed student practicing kicks outside of the building next to the bushes. Does he ever stop training? She thought to herself while she watched him spin and thrust his legs about, taking moments to look down at a book to his left. His work ethic was pretty well known by this point. Every time anyone saw him outside of his room, he was either working out or studying. Plus he can help you out in maths. Hagakure's words replayed in Jirou's head. That's it. She said to herself. Maybe if I can convince him to help me out in maths, I can somehow get him to tell me about his quirk and all might. She continued, realizing that this was probably her best shot at getting the boy to reveal his secret to her. Without hesitation she grabbed her jacket and made her down the stairs, passing by Satyu and Siro on her way to where Midoriya was located. As she made her way around the building she saw the strength enhancement user was taking a break, presumably from fatigue from his training session. Hey Midoriya. She yelled as she approached the boy, startling him enough to make him jump at the mention of his name. Hey Jiro-san. Sorry if I'm bothering you, but do you have a minute? Sure, what's up? Well first, I don't think I ever properly got to tell you what an awesome job you did yesterday during training. Don't mention Jiro-san. But it would have never worked without you. I think I should be the one thanking you. You're funny. But I was wondering if I could ask you a question. Well, it's more like a favor now that I think about it. What did you need? I need help with maths. I know you're pretty good when it comes to everything, so I was wondering if you'd be able to give me some help. Sure, Jiro-san, but why are you asking me? Yaoi Rozu-san has a higher grade than me, and you two are already good friends. Yeah, well, Momo is smart and all, but she's not really the best teacher. From what I've heard, you take very good notes and can explain things very well. It wasn't a total lie, but it was believable enough to not raise suspicion. Oh, alright then, in that case I'd be glad to help you, Jiro-san. Really? Yeah, what kind of aspiring hero would I be if I didn't help a classmate in need? Awesome, I'm free tomorrow after 12 if you wanted to just knock it out then. That's fine with me. Alright, it's a plan. I'll see you later. Goodbye, Jiro-san. Yeah. Was all the purple-haired girl said as she quickly turned around to make some distance between herself and her classmate. Her hastily thrown together plan had been a success. Now all that she had to do was just wait for tomorrow, and then she'll have the perfect chance to ask him. When she passed through the hallway on the way back to her room, she took a moment to peek outside the window, getting one more look at Midoriya as he went back to practicing his kicking technique. Tomorrow is sure going to be interesting. Trying to get a classmate to reveal an earth-shattering secret was definitely not what Jirou had planned for her Saturday afternoon. This time was usually spent either doing her weekend homework assignments, practicing her many instruments, hanging out with her friends, or just listening to music. Her meet-up time with Midoriya was in 10 minutes, and naturally she was having second thoughts about the entire ordeal. The two barely knew each other as it was, and now she was trying to get him to reveal a secret that he's been keeping for who knows how long. She had spent not only the last few hours, but the entire night devising exactly how to go about the situation. Needless to say, strategizing is not one of her strong suits. The only halfway decent idea she had the entire night was that she wanted to make sure that the two of them were alone when she began her inquiry. The last thing she wanted was another set of ears being thrown into what she believed was already a delicate situation as it was. Maybe this is a mistake. She thought to herself. Maybe I should just pretend that I don't know anything and keep it moving. As tantalizing a thought that it was, she knew herself well enough to know that she wouldn't be able to keep this bottled up for too long. She wasn't as bad as Ishido, but when it came to secrets and gossip, she sometimes had to actively try to keep her mouth shut on certain subjects. Even so, she wanted answers, and going directly to the source was just easier. For all she knew, this was just a major understanding, and she'd just end up making a fool of herself to someone she doesn't even talk to. Jirou looked at the clock next to her bed and decided that it was time to make her way down to the common area to meet up with Midoriya. Grabbing her jacket and backpack, Jirou made her way down to the room, passing Satu in the halls, giving a quick greeting just to be nice. By the time she made her way into the common area, she noticed that her green-haired classmate was already sitting on one of the couches watching television. She noticed that he was watching the news, more specifically the hero reports that came on right about this time every day, all while scribbling in one of his notebooks. Midoriya. Jirou called out to get his attention. Midoriya was momentarily startled before he turned his head to meet the gaze of his purple-haired classmate. Jiro-san, hello. I should have known that you'd be down here already. Well, it's rude to be late, especially if it's for someone that you're trying to help. I appreciate the gesture, thanks. You're welcome, Jiro-san. So what did you want to start off with? Actually, I was hoping that we could go somewhere else to study if you don't mind. It gets pretty loud with everyone in here, and with my quirk I can pick up on the excess noise. There's a park not too far away from here that I usually go to. Although it was a lie, it was reasonable enough to be believed. That's no problem at all, Jiro-san, whatever can help you focus on studying. He smiled as he grabbed his backpack from in front of the sofa that he was sitting on. Jirou couldn't help but grin at how enthusiastic the boy was for their study session. He was all about helping people and being as heroic as he could, even such a minor task as helping a classmate study was an extension of that. As the pair made their way to the park that Jirou decided on, the earphone jack user grew increasingly nervous at the situation she found herself in. She already knew that she didn't want to just ask him about his quirk out the gate, something like that would either completely blow up in her face or cause the boy to have a heart attack on the spot. Easing him into it was a far better strategy. She'd seen Ishido do it before to other classmates, before asking them personal questions about whatever rumors that she wanted to know about. After a roughly 15-minute walk down the road, the students arrived at the park. Despite usually being filled with people on the weekends, the area had more than enough secluded locations that would allow for a private conversation to go unheard. Jirou spent a lot of time at this park on days when classes weren't in session to come out and play her guitar in private. Although she was good at the instrument, she found that playing in privacy was far superior to playing in the dorms where people could hear her practicing the songs that she wrote herself. She would often play under a large cherry tree near the edge of the park, which was where she decided that she wanted this study session to take place. While she led Midoriya to the area, she used her quirk to make sure that no one was around who could potentially be close enough to hear the two of them speak. The green-haired boy took a second to admire the sights that surrounded him and his classmate. He couldn't help but comment on how beautiful the area looked. It was his first time at this park, so he never got a chance to take in the area before. Wow, Jiro-san. I can see why you wanted to study here, it's awesome. Midoriya stated while dropping his backpack onto the ground next to the tree, pulling out his notes. Yeah, it's pretty peaceful over here so no one will bother us while we work. The girl replied while taking out her studying material as well. Midoriya and Jirou wasted no time in getting down to business. Despite it only being a cover-up for her actual plan, the girl did need help when it came to maths. Trigonometry was her worst subject by far and she narrowly passed the last 3 quizzes that ectoplasm gave them. Luckily what she said yesterday about the green-haired boy being good at teaching turned out to be true. Not only did Midoriya have a way to break down the problems in a simple manner, he had a way of relating them to the real world, a feat that Jirou thought was impossible. The two students went on for about an hour and a half before Jirou decided that it was time to take a break. She was already mentally zapped from the amount of material they had covered over the last 90 minutes, but she also thought that now was as good a time as any to put her plan into action. Her nerves were starting to jump as the thought about what she was going to do creeped into her mind. Just ease into it, Kyoka. She repeated to herself as she took in a deep breath. Wow, I can see why your grades are so high. You really know this stuff pretty well. Thank you Jiro-san, but I'm not all that great compared to Yaoi Rozu-san. The boy blushed, slightly embarrassed by the compliment. I guess you're right, but no one can compare to Momo when academics are involved. You're right about that. But when it comes to other stuff like battle and rescue training, you're probably one of the best in our class. I don't know about all that. A noticeable tinge of pink appeared on the boy's cheeks. I'm being serious. On top of being a good strategist and being able to think on your feet, your quirk allows you to do things most of us in class can't. But your quirk is amazing, Jiro-san, it's perfectly suited for rescue operations. Sure, I guess so. But when it comes to battles it's not that great. Hell, if my amplifiers get messed up or malfunction in the middle of a fight I might as well be toast. I see, that could be a problem. But your quirk is great for both. Strength enhancement is good for any battle and you're creative enough to use it to save people pretty easily. I'm kind of jealous to be honest, I wish I was born with your quirk. Jirou let out, making sure to get a look at her classmate as he listened to her words. She couldn't see any changes in his facial expressions, but she could hear his heart rate jump up slightly for a few seconds, a clear indicator of his nerves. Alright, that obviously struck a chord. You're too kind Jiro-san. But your quirk is still just as cool in my opinion. Especially the way that you use it to locate and track people. Maybe, but it's not really all that flashy so I don't know how popular of a pro I can be. When it comes to stuff like that you, Todoroki and Bakugo have that locked down. I'd even say your quirk makes you a shoe-in to be the next All Might. The girl said, once again her words causing her classmate's heart rate to jump up. This time it was in conjunction with a wincing facial gesture that the boy made at the mention of the former symbol of peace. It was clear enough that she was starting to chip away at him. A lot of people have said that, but I'm not really like All Might. Sure our quirks are kind of similar, but that's as far as it goes. Is that really as far as Midoriya goes? Huh? Is that really as far as it goes? The similarities between you two? Yeah, that's it. You know a lot of people are saying that you're his kid. I know a few people have asked me, but I can guarantee you that it's not true. I know. What? I know that it's not true. So why did you bring it up? Jirou sighed for a moment and tried to calm her nerves. Even though she prepared for what was coming next, it didn't make her any more uneasy. She knew that what she was about to do could be a grave mistake. She looked at the boy with her aloof facial expression that she was known for, taking in the confusion that lined his face like a billboard. Midoriya, I need to ask you a question, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Sure Jiro-san. How long have you had All Might's power? Hey Satu. Have you seen Kyoka anywhere? Hagakure asked her classmate as she walked past the kitchen, taking in the aroma of whatever he was baking. Yeah, I saw her and Midoriya leave the building like 2 hours ago. The brown-haired boy replied, turning only his head while he continued to prepare a bowl of frosting in front of him. Okay then wait what although you couldn't actually see her face, it was pretty clear what her facial expression was. I saw her and Midoriya leave a couple of hours ago. They had their backpacks with them so I think they went to study. Are you sure it was those two? Yeah it's kind of hard to miss someone with green hair and another with Hagakure are you still there? Satu turned around to look at his classmate only to be greeted by a lack of floating clothing. Dumbfounded, if there was a single word that could describe his feelings at this very moment, Midoriya would say that dumbfounded was the appropriate word. He doesn't exactly know how long it's been since the words came out of her mouth. Seconds, minutes, he honestly wasn't sure. There were a lot of things that he wasn't sure about at this moment. He wasn't sure why his body was completely frozen in place, why his mouth was drier than a desert, why his heart was getting ready to burst out of his chest. He wasn't sure why the air around him suddenly felt stiff or why he could feel the blood rushing through his veins. The only two things he was sure about at this moment was that kyoka Jiro, his classmate, a girl that he only ever talked to a handful of times at the most, was looking at him and that she had just asked him a question that he never thought that he would hear. Thoughts were racing through his head at what could have happened to lead him to this moment. Had he made a mistake? Did he slip up and mention something that he shouldn't have to the girl? Only a handful of people knew the truth about the power that resides in his body. He traced back in his head every encounter with the purple-haired girl that he could remember. The mention of his quirk never came up in the brief talks. Even when they were partners in training a few days ago, they didn't talk that much. So why? Why was she asking him this question, and how did she know? More importantly, what was he going to do? He knew that lying wasn't an option for him, he was terrible at it, so any attempt would only make the situation worse. He could just run away, but that would have solved nothing. Damn. I need to think. He screamed internally, trying to find a way out of the situation, only to realize that the girl was still staring at him expecting some type of response. What are you talking about, Jiro-san? Midoriya, there's no point in lying about it. My quirk gives me super hearing, I can hear your heartbeat, and I can tell when you're lying. Damn, he thought to himself, he knew her hearing was great, but he was expecting it to be that refined. Jiro-san, I don't exactly understand. I overheard you and All Might talking in the teacher's lounge 2 days ago. I only caught the last part of it, but that was more than enough. I think you might have misunderstood what you heard then. That's what I thought at first too, but then I got thinking. Then a lot of stuff started to make sense. Jiro-san, I think you might be. The private talks you two always have, the way All Might treats you compared to the rest of us, your quirk destroying your body at the beginning of the year, him fighting that villain that appeared to have multiple quirks. Everything started to make sense after I heard you two talk, and to be honest, I had a hard time believing it. And then Kirishima told me about you being a late bloomer when it came to your quirk. Midoriya tuned out at her words. She was right, she connected the dots just like Bakugo had done. Deep down he knew that whatever he was going to try and say to get himself out of the situation wasn't going to work. She could tell when he was lying, and anything other than a satisfactory answer wasn't going to cut it. He was trapped, backed into a corner about the one secret that he had made so much effort to keep hidden. His only slip-up that he could recall led to his former friend finding out about his power, but this was different. Look, I don't blame you for not wanting to tell me anything. She started speaking again, giving him a somber look. I know it's rude of me to ask you about any of this, but I just need to. Since right before school started. Huh? I've had this power since right before school started. All Might gave me his quirk the day before the entrance exams. Jiro didn't know what to say. She was hoping that she was wrong, but she wasn't expecting him to just come right out and say it. So am I right? Yes, Jiro-san, you're right. Midoriya, I don't really know what to say right now. Me neither. The two students stared at each other, not sure of what to do next. The secret was out and they had passed the point of no return. Midoriya had confirmed her suspicions and he just gave up a secret that he swore to protect. The boy's heart was beating fast enough that Jiro thought he was going to have a heart attack. Midoriya pulled out his phone and began swiping across the screen. I need to make a call, sorry Jiro-san. Alright, Jiro replied as the boy stepped away from her, walking just far enough to where she couldn't hear the conversation that he was having. After what felt to be about 10 minutes, the green-haired boy came back to where she was standing. Jiro-san. Yeah? Come with me, we have to go to Dagaba Beach. Why's that? We're going to go meet with All Might, there's a lot that we have to talk about. Standing on the beach in the middle of fall was definitely a weird experience for Jiro. What was her reason for being here? Midoriya had told her that they were going to meet All Might here to have a talk. What that talk would entail was still a mystery to her. As she waited for her teacher to arrive, she couldn't help the awkward aurora that surrounded her and Midoriya. The boy had been quiet on their train ride over, more than usual. She couldn't blame him though, what could he say? Anything of relevance he had to say probably was being withheld until All Might was here, and the two weren't really in a position to strike up random small talk at the moment. The tension between them was almost palpable. Young Midoriya. She heard a familiar voice call out from the concrete steps not too far away from them. Jiro turned around to see the former symbol of peace walking towards them, with a more serious expression than what she was used to. All Might. The green-haired boy replied. Within a few seconds their teacher was standing mere feet from them, giving Jiro a look that she couldn't read. Young Midoriya has already told me about your earlier conversation with young Jiro. I expect that you have a lot of questions. Yes sensei, I do. But, I don't really know where to begin. That's fine, how about we just start from the beginning? No way, are you sure Toru? Ashido questioned her invisible classmate. Yes, Satu told me. He saw the two of them leaving together a few hours ago. Even if this were true, it sounded like they were just going to go do some studying. Yaoirozu interjected. So why not just study here, and why ask Midoriya instead of Yamomo? Who knows? I bet they're having a super romantic date right now. Ashido chirped while letting her imagination run wild. So let me make sure I got this straight. Jiro sighed as she scratched her head, trying to process all that she was just told. Midoriya, you were actually born without a quirk. Yes. The verdant teen answered. And while you were in middle school you met All Might and he decided to make you the successor of One for All. Right. And One for All is technically a quirk that stockpiles power that gets stronger with each new user. Yes. And you got this awesome quirk from All Might, who was also born without a quirk. Right. The two answered in unison. And this quirk was accidentally created by the villain that All Might fought in Kamino Ward, All for One. Who has the power to take and give away quirks. That's correct, young Jiro. Who is also the boss of the guy in charge of the League of Villains, Tamura Shigaraki. Yes. Wow. Sorry guys, but this is just a lot to take in right now. I understand that it can be pretty overwhelming for young Jiro, but it is the truth. All Might said as he placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. His expression was still unreadable to her. I know, that just doesn't make it any more unbelievable. Young Jiro, as you know this is a closely guarded secret. All Might began. Word of this must not make its way to the public. I know, I won't speak a word of this to anyone else. You have my word, sensei. That's good to hear. Relief washed over the retired hero. So, just out of curiosity, who else knows about all of this? Other than yourself, young Jiro, Gran Torino, who was my teacher and friend of my former master, my best friend Tsukauchi, who's on the police force, David Shield, Recovery Girl, the principal, and Kakin. Midoriya interjected. Wait, really? Bakugo knows about this? Jiro was surprised to hear that Class 1A's resident hothead was aware of the situation. From the interaction she witnessed between the two boys, along with Bakugo's ego, it was surprising that he would be privileged to receive such information. Yes, he found out not too long ago. Are you sure it's okay that he of all people knows? Kakin may be prideful and arrogant, but he knows how to keep a secret. Alright, so what do we do now? Now, the two of you go back home. It's getting rather late, and even though it's Saturday you still have a curfew to make. Yes, sensei. The two bowed. The train ride back to the dorms was still awkward for the two heroes in training. Jiro was doing her best to process all of the information that she was given earlier, and Midoriya was muttering to himself about something that she could not decipher due to how fast he was speaking. This was the first time that the two of them had spent an extended amount of time together, and after the events that transpired not too long ago there wasn't really anything to discuss, not in public at least. After letting out a rather exaggerated sigh, Jiro decided to take her phone out to play some music, scrolling to the Deep Dope album that was already queued up in her phone. She figured tuning everything out was a better alternative than just sitting in silence. She pegged her left earphone jack into her phone and pressed the play button, letting the sounds of her music distract her from everything else. Their new album is pretty great, isn't it? Jiro turned her head to meet the gaze of her green-haired classmate. A slight bit of confusion on her face. What? The new Deep Dope album? Personally I think it's one of their best. Do you listen to punk rock? Not a lot to be honest. Kaminari-kun played some for me once and I thought it would be good to work out too. I never pegged you for a fan. You seem more like a pop kind of guy. I don't really have a favorite genre. Figures, you seem like one of those kinds of guys. Was that supposed to be a compliment? The two laughed as they took a moment to appreciate the humor. Surprisingly enough, this small chat led to a rather delightful conversation for the rest of the ride home. The students spent their time talking about a bunch of different music-related topics ranging from new music, bands, instruments among other things. Much to Jiro's surprise, Midoriya was a lot more knowledgeable in the subject of music than she had thought. Apparently while researching some new music to listen to he ended up just learning about all different kinds of musical-related things. Something so ridiculous fit the green-haired boy so well that it made her laugh, causing his face to go completely red. Before long the train had arrived at their departure point, which was only a 5-minute walk away from the campus. The sun was already beginning to set, which caused the two to just realize that they had been gone for almost 6 hours. Between the whirlwind of events that today the time just flew by. Man, I can't believe that it's already this late. Jiro thought to herself. Without giving it a second thought the pair began making their way back to their home, Midoriya taking this time to say a few words to the purple-haired girl. I appreciate you promising to keep all of this a secret, Jiro-san. Well, it's the least I could do after putting my nose in your business like that. You don't have to worry though, my lips are sealed. Thank you, Jiro-san. Midoriya, could you please stop being so formal with me? Huh? The way I see it, after today we're pretty good friends at the very least. Just call me Kyoka. I'm sorry Jiro-san, I mean Kyoka. It's a habit I have a hard time breaking. It's fine. You can just call me Izuku then. He blushed as he turned his head away, causing a slight tinge of pink to also show on the girl's face. Before they knew it, the two were only a few steps away from the entrance into their dorm. With how eventful their day was, the prospect of getting some rest and laying down was almost too good to be true. Midoriya opened the door and stepped to the side, allowing Jirou to enter first, a habit his mom had taught him to from an early age. There they are, was all they heard before he saw a flash of pink and felt himself being grabbed from behind and being pulled into the building. Whatever was going on, the green-haired boy knew it wasn't going to be good. To say the last 2 minutes or so for Jirou and Midoriya were nothing but a blur would be an understatement. She didn't exactly know how it happened, but Jirou found herself tied to a chair with what appeared to be Siro's tape wrapped around her body. Taking a second to look around and regain her bearings, she saw that Midoriya was in a similar predicament, except his entire body was covered in the adhesive substance and he was sprawled out on the sofa to her left. Suddenly a bright light was shining directly down at her face, noticing a pair of floating clothes directing the device. "Alright you two, cut the shit. We want details, and none of us are leaving until we get them." The voice of Mina Ashido yelled as she appeared into Midoriya and Jirou's vision. The both of them took a moment to look around the room to see that she was accompanied by Momo, Kirishima, Shiro, Hagakure, and Tsuyu. "What is going on?" Jirou asked as she tried to undo the tape around her torso, to no avail. "That's what we want to know." Hagakure responded while moving the light closer to Jirou's face. "Yeah, you two left early this afternoon to do who knows what and are just now coming back. Where exactly have you guys been?" "Midoriya, I'm sorry bro. I tried to talk them out of this, but they were dead set on it," Kirishima said as he shuffled his way over to his classmate. "Can someone explain to me what the hell is going on?" Everyone takes a moment to notice the vein bulging out of Jirou's forehead. "Don't play dumb Kyoka, we know you two were together this entire afternoon and we want to know why. Were you two out on date?" Ashido grinned as she leaned her face against her friends. "What are you guys talking about?" This time it was Midoriya's turn to speak. "I think you all have the wrong idea. So please enlighten us." Hagakure interjected. "We were just studying, that's it." "Really? It must have been a pretty intense study session if it lasted almost 6 hours, Jirou." Tsuyu stated. "Is this true Midoriya, is that what you two were doing?" "Don't bother trying to lie, we all know you're terrible at it." "Yes, all we did was study." "Well, I don't believe you. Come on guys, whatever they did this afternoon is their business, there's no point in prying if they don't want to tell us." Momo spoke up, doing her best to defuse the situation. A sigh of relief came from Midoriya and Jirou as they mentally thanked their academically gifted classmate. "Ugh no, I want to hear all about it." Hagakure waved her invisible arms in frustration as her beautifully crafted plan was falling apart. Deciding that it was his turn to speak up, Kirishima used his quirk to cut the tape around Midoriya's body. He then turned around to look at the rest of his group. "Yeah, Momo is right, guys. If they don't want to tell us what they were doing today, then it's none of our business." "I agree." "Okay fine. But I will get to the bottom of this Kyoka. Anyways, we apologize for tying you guys up." "Me too." The others bowed in unison as they asked for their friend's forgiveness. Like a moment ago, Kirishima used his quirk to undo the tape that surrounded Jirou. The group of students gave another bow before returning to their rooms, leaving Midoriya and Jirou alone in the common area. As bizarre as the last few minutes were, the two couldn't help but laugh at how extreme their classmates could get at times. It was a refreshing turn of events considering the kind of day that the two were having. After a brief chat, Jirou decided that it would be good for her and Midoriya to exchange phone numbers. The action to her was no big deal, but was enough for her new friend's face to go pink with blush. Even though she now understood the boy a lot more than she did before today, his bashful and easily embarrassed attitude still annoyed her quite a bit. She sighed internally before waving him goodbye as she turned around and made her way up to her room, hoping that once she was up there she would be able to finally get some much needed rest. Man, what a day. "Tokoyami, have you got anything yet?" "No, I can't tell where they are from here and Dark Shadow's range is limited right now." "Damn, water is Tsuyu's element and I have no idea where Izuku might be. Perhaps it's just best to let them come to us." "I want to agree with you, but we only have 20 minutes left, we can't afford to wait for too long." Jirou sighed, scratching her head as she tried to come up with some sort of strategy. Class 1A was currently in another one of their weekly practical training sessions. Just like the week prior, the students had been randomly put into pairs and given the task to face off against another team in their class with the simple goal of subduing and capturing the other team before the 30-minute limit was up. The matchup was currently Midoriya and Tsuyu against Jirou and Tokoyami. Under normal circumstances, she and Tokoyami would have an advantage. Unfortunately for them, today's training was taking place at the USJ, more specifically in the flood zone, which gave their frog-like classmate a distinct advantage. As if things weren't bad enough for them, their other green-haired classmate was nowhere that they could tell. Jirou had spent the last few minutes using her quirk to listen out for his footsteps, breathing her heartbeats, but to no avail. An indicator that they were currently out of her range. Their best bet is to either hit us with a frontal assault or ambush us. I say we keep away from the water just in case Asui is over there and try to avoid places where our field of vision is limited so as to avoid a sneak attack from Midoriya. Tokoyami turned to face his classmate as he recalled Dark Shadow. Yeah, we shouldn't stay in one place. She agrees with her bird-like classmate's assessment. The two of them began making their way across the flood zone while using their quirks to scan for their opponents. As the loudspeaker roared out that there was only 15 minutes remaining, Jirou was beginning to worry. Half of their allotted time was already gone and still no sign of Midoriya or Tsai. Sneak attacks weren't either of those two's philosophies when it came to battles. Her frog-like friend was too straightforward for that kind of thing, and Midoriya's quirk was better suited for a quick fight where he could overpower his opponents. As they made their way to the other side of the area, Tokoyami suggested that the two take a minute to revise their plan, electing to hide under a makeshift abandoned house. Jirou obliged, and the two made their way to the shelter. They'll have to show up sooner or later, Jirou began. Aizawa-sensei already said that failure on both sides to make a capture would mean a failing grade for all of us, and I doubt those two would take that risk. Maybe we should take the fight to them. We only have about 12 minutes left. I can't say I disagree with that, but we don't even have a battle strategy. Izuku can overpower either of us, and both of them are smart enough to already have a plan. You're right, I suggest that we splash. The sound was only a few meters away from them, cutting off Tokoyami's words as the two students turned around to see where the sound came from. The ripple in the water from where the noise originated was not accompanied by anything. A look of confusion rose on the faces of Jirou and Tokoyami. You know, you two should have probably come up with a strategy before making your move. It made it really easy to follow once we saw that you guys didn't have a plan, Jirou. Sayu's voice said as she undid her camouflage, revealing herself to be about 12 meters away from the pair. She's just outside the range of my hearing. Jirou cursed herself as she stood up, hoping to get the dropped Sayu. Midoriya-chan, now. The frog-themed hero yelled as she jumped high in the air away from Jirou. Oklahoma smash. The green-haired boy yelled from right above them as Jirou and Tokoyami felt a strong surge of wind surrounding them, flinging them both into the air. The wind disoriented Jirou enough to where she couldn't tell which way was up or down. Trying her best to make something out of nothing, she plugged her earphone jacks into the amplifiers on her wrist, hoping to get off an attack in this chaos. Unfortunately for the purple-haired girl, her arms became wrapped under Tsayu's tongue, holding her earphone jacks in place to where she couldn't manipulate them. She felt the appendage pull her away from the gust that she was in. Before she knew it, the capture tape was already around her hands, and Jirou was on the ground looking up at Tsayu. Seconds later she heard a grunt from behind her, turning her body over to see Tokoyami in the same predicament as Midoriya was kneeling over him. Teammate wins. The loudspeaker blared as their training session came to an end. Jirou took a second to try and fully process what just happened, letting out a sigh as she accepted her defeat. Okay, what just happened? She asked her two classmates, while Tsayu knelt down next to her to undo the capture tape around her wrists. Yes, I'm confused as to how we ended up in the air. Tokoyami inquired as he stood up next to Midoriya. That was all Midoriya, Jirou. The frog-like girl began to speak. What? So what were you doing? Yeah. The quirk inheritor blushed. It's kind of a new move I've been working on. To be honest, I didn't think it was going to work, but we were running out of time. He's right, Jirou. Our original plan was for me to wait in the water until you two got close enough and then corner the both of you. But once we saw that you were purposefully avoiding the lake area, we had to regroup, and that was the idea he came up with. Tokoyami dusted himself off as he let out a sigh. So our initial guess was correct. You were planning a surprise attack. Yeah, I guess you could say that. We knew that if we had any chance of winning we'd have to be quiet and fast. So we wanted to stay near the water. I see, well then you two just got the better of us. The shadow quirk user replied to Midoriya. I guess they did. Jirou agreed as she put her hands in her pockets, trying to keep up her trademark aloof expression to hide her annoyance at losing. After a few short words between the students, they quickly made their way back to the holding area at the top of the USJ, where the rest of the class was waiting on them. Jirou and Midoriya were walking side by side as they made the trek back to the top. Luckily for her, they were far enough away from Tsayu and Tokoyami to where they wouldn't be able to hear them. Oklahoma smash, that's one of All Might's moves, isn't it? She whispered. Yeah, it is. What happened to all that stuff about you trying to do things your own way? I'm still trying to break the habit of copying him. But it's a pretty useful move, and it's the only one he has that doesn't require the use of my arms. Plus I got kind of desperate. Fair enough, Izuku. It's a pretty crazy move though. I guess you're right about that, you're a kyoka. When the students got up to rest of the class they were greeted by their friends. While Hagakure and Ishido tried their best to congratulate Jirou despite her loss, the rest of the class surrounded Midoriya. The students were giving him a few cheers and asking him about the move that he did, causing his face to go red with embarrassment. Jirou couldn't help but chuckle at how easily flustered the boy got sometimes. She still found it kind of lame, but recognized that it was just a part of his character. Over the last week the two had spent a good amount of time together. Seeing as she knew his biggest secret, Jirou concluded that it was only natural for some type of friendship to form between them. They didn't spend every waking moment together or anything, but they had lunch together a few times within their respective groups. Jirou had no problem integrating herself into Midoriya's group since she's already good friends with Uraraka and Sai. Midoriya however wasn't having the same amount of luck. Ishido and Hagakure's over-the-top attitudes along with Kaminara's less than appropriate behavior did make him uncomfortable at times, but Kirishima was there so it helped a lot. While she watched the class joke around with her broccoli-headed friend, her eyes scanned over to the back of the stairs where she noticed one person not taking part. Bakugo, Class 1A's resident hothead, was giving Midoriya a pretty obvious scowl. What the hell is his problem? She thought as she tried to figure him out. She remembered Midoriya telling her that Bakugo was aware of one for all, but judging from how he acted with him, he wasn't a fan of a boy he knew as previously quirkless, suddenly becoming the inheritor of so much power. Electing not to give it too much though, Jirou just let it go as she went back to talking with her friends. The rest of Class 1A's Thursday went by as smoothly as one could hope for. Aside from another rough day of mathematics for Jirou, even though Midoriya was still helping with her studies, she continued having trouble keeping with the information that ectoplasm was giving them. When the final bell of the day rang, Jirou was more than excited to be done with the class and get back to her room to relax. After waiting up for Ishido and Yaoyorozu, the trio made their way back to the dorms, deciding to discuss the events of the day. "Man, today's training sucked," Ishido began. "Having to go against Todoroki and Iida was just too much." "I agree," Bakugo and Shiro presented quite the problem. "I still don't know how I ended up getting captured so fast. At least you guys had a chance. Tokoyami and I cornered ourselves and we just got overpowered." Speaking of overpowered, what the hell was that new move Midoriya busted out today? All we could see from the waiting area was a small tornado. Next thing we knew, Aizawa-sensei called the match. I was wondering that as well. Yaoyorozu and Ishido took this time to glance over at Jirou, expecting some kind of answer. "Why are you guys looking at me like that? The only thing I saw was the wind flying around me." "Well, you two spend so much time together, so we thought that you'd know." Ishido's words caused a slight blush to form on the purple-haired girl's face. "We don't spend that much time together. Come on Kyoka, over the last week you two have been hanging out a bunch. If I didn't know any better, well you don't. Oh come on, we know there's something going on between you two. Just come out and say it." "There's nothing going on, Mina." "She has a point though Kyoka," Yaoyorozu interjected. "You two hardly ever spoke to each other before and then out of the blue, you two start hanging out together almost daily. We're just friends, okay? Stop jerking us around. You know you can tell us anything right? Come on, are you two dating?" "Then no we're not dating. Sure Izuku is cute and all, but..." Jirou immediately paused when the realization hit her like a freight train. "What the fuck did I just say?" Almost simultaneously her two friends stopped completely in their tracks. They both turned around to meet the purple-haired girl's gaze. Ishido was giving her a mischievous grin, while Yaoyorozu's face was a mixture of something between confused and surprised. As they exchanged gazes between one another, Jirou could feel her heartbeat rapidly increasing and the heat rising on her face. She had no idea what to say. She was just as shocked by her words as the other two were. "Since when did I start thinking of Izuku as cute?" the earphone jack user asked. "I knew it." Ishido was the first one to break the silence. "I don't, so you do have a crush on him?" "Kyoka, I must say. I'm honestly surprised." "Oh man, we have to tell the other girls about this. We can totally help you plan out a date." "Stop." Jirou shouted in response, trying to regain control of the situation. "You guys just have the wrong idea, okay?" "What do you mean? You just said that you think Midoriya is cute." "I know I did, but what is happening right now?" "Oh no Kyoka, is it possible that you're having trouble expressing your feelings? This isn't good at all." "Guys." She shouted once again, this time her attempt at stopping the conversation was successful. The two students look at her with confused expressions. "Can we just forget that this ever happened, please?" "Come on Kyoka, do you really expect us to just forget about that?" "I agree with Mina. This is something important." As she looked at her two classmates, Jirou realized that any attempt to change the subject was going to be pointless. When it came to gossip and trying to match people together, Ishido lit up like a Christmas tree. And despite her demeanor, Yaoi Rozu absolutely loved anything involving romance, especially when it came to her own friends. Trying to get these two to leave it alone was an exercise in futility, especially since there was no way to back out of it. Not only that, Jirou didn't really know why she said it in the first place. She racked her brain trying to figure out why those words randomly came out of her mouth. Why did that thought just naturally roll off the tongue? Jirou replayed the moment in her head several times, trying to get a grip on her own thoughts. But what truly unsettled her was the notion that she felt she was being honest. She honestly thought that Class 1A's green-haired nerd was actually cute. She never considered him ugly to begin with, sure he's rather plain looking, but cute. As she tried to process her thoughts a bit more, she was quickly snapped back to reality as a pink hand on her shoulder gained her attention. "Hello Earth to Kyoka. Are you still with us?" Ashido shook her friend. "Huh? Oh yeah. Sorry. It's cool. Look, if you don't want us to say anything about it, then that's fine. Thank you Mina, but that doesn't mean that we're just going to sit idly by." "What?" "Since it's obvious that you have a crush on Midoriya, we're going to find out if he feels the same way." "That's a great idea Mina. If we can find Midoriya's feelings towards Kyoka, then setting these up should be a piece of cake. That's the spirit of Yamomo." The pink-skinned girl cheered as the two of them started devising a plan. Jirou couldn't do anything but just look and listen as her friends talked. Her face was as red as a tomato and she couldn't get, is this really happening? "Hey Kirishima, do you mind if I ask you a weird question?" Kaminari said to the hardening quirk user as he took a bite of his candy bar. "Sure man, what is it?" Kirishima replied, looking over. "Do you think that Midoriya and Jirou are like a thing?" "What do you mean a thing?" "Like dating, do you think that they're together?" "I don't know, why do you ask?" "Well lately they've been hanging out a lot and she's invited him to sit with us at lunch a couple of times, so I was just curious." The slight blush on his face was barely noticeable while he put his hand behind his head. "I honestly couldn't tell you man, I don't really pay attention to stuff like that." "Why what's up bro?" "Nothing, just trying to be nosy." If there was ever a time that Jirou wanted to be somewhere else, it was right now. Her head was throbbing, her hand was shaking, and her level of frustration had already reached its limit. She could count on one hand the number of times that she's felt so utterly defeated, and this was by far the worst. Never before did she believe that a pop quiz given by ectoplasm would cause her so much mental anguish like it did now. She looked up to see the seconds on clock at the front of the classroom quickly pass by as time ran out. Currently Class 1 was in the middle of one of the many surprise assessments by their maths teacher. Over the school year the students grew accustomed to having one every Tuesday. Today however, as Jirou looked down at the half-completed form in front of her, she had already accepted the fact that she wasn't going to make it through the entire thing. She took a moment to look around the classroom at the other students to see if anyone might possibly share in her pain. To her left Kaminari and Ashido looked completely stone-faced. If anyone was going to get a worse grade than her, it was going to be those two. To her right Bakugo wore a disinterested look on his face while he spun his pencil in between his fingers. She noticed that his sheet was turned over, an indication that he was done with his. She looked back down at her quiz and tried to decipher the almost foreign language in front of her. Why did it have to be polynomials? She cried out internally. There were only 2 minutes left before they were done, and Jirou still had 7 questions left unanswered. She tried bouncing around the test to answer the ones that she knew first, but even that didn't give her a lot of confidence, since she more or less guessed on about a third of those. Accepting her defeat, Jirou turned her sheet over, set her pencil down, and let out a sigh. "I seriously need to do more studying." "Alright students, the bell is about to ring." Ectoplasm began, "Pass your sheets up to the front of the class and get ready to leave." That was way too much. Ashido let out as she grabbed the stack of papers from Tsai. Jirou could almost see a tear come out of the pinkette's eye. To say that Jirou agreed with her would be an understatement. As the final bell of the day rang, the students of Class 1 began filing out of the room. The majority of them carried looks of defeat on their face, while others were talking over answers of their quiz to see what they had potentially missed. Electing to avoid any conversation involving her obvious failure, Jirou decided to walk by herself, or that was the plan at least until Yaoi Rozu caught up to her a few seconds after leaving the classroom. "So Kyoka, how do you think you did?" The creation quirk user asked her friend with a rather cheerful disposition. "Terrible to say the least." Jirou responded with a disappointed look on her face. "Oh no, that's not good." "Yeah, well, it was odd for us to have a pop quiz on a Monday. I think I might have missed 1 or 2 myself." "Are you missing more than 1 question on a quiz? Like that would ever happen? I bet you were the first one done, weren't you?" "From what I could tell I wasn't. I think Midoriya was done before I was." "Really?" "Yes." "Hey, I thought that he was helping you study, what happened?" "Well, we haven't really talked much since last Thursday, so I didn't get to do that this weekend." "Well, you could have just asked me to help." You know our study group is every Saturday, and you're more than welcome to join. Thanks Momo, don't take this the wrong way, but studying in a big group doesn't really help me. And as long I'm being honest, you go over information way too fast for me to keep up. One-on-one sessions are way better for me. I had no idea, I wish you told me this sooner, I would have done more to help. I know, but I don't want to slow anyone else down. Don't worry, I plan on putting in overtime on maths this week, so I should be more prepared next time. Well, that's good to hear. Thank you for being honest, by the way. No problem. Lying in her bed listening to music was one of the few times during the day where Jirou felt completely relaxed. Drowning out the sounds of the day while jamming out to her favorite punk bands had a way of putting the girl at ease. Which was what she needed at the moment. Although living in the UA wasn't always positive, one of the many benefits that Jirou noticed was that she had a bit more free time after school. Since she didn't have to take the train to and from the campus every day, it shaved off about an hour of the day, along with being able to wake up later than she was used to. Before she could completely immerse herself into her music, she heard a knocking at the door, just loud enough for her to hear despite using her headphones. The slightly annoyed heroine in training got up from the comfort of her bed and made her way to the door, wondering who could have been trying to ruin her mood. When she opened the door, she was surprised to see none other than Ashido standing in the doorway with an ear-to-ear smile on her face, a look that almost always indicated that she was up to something. "What is Mina?" she asked her horned friend. "It's important, do you mind if I come in?" "Yeah, sure." "Awesome." The Pinkette cheered as she walked in the room, closing the door behind her, but still maintaining her smile. Jirou looked at her with a perplexed face while Ashido sat on her bed. "So what's up? Look what I got." The girl giggled, pulling out a white notebook from behind her. Jirou immediately recognized the object as she read the writing on the book. Hero analysis for the future number 13. "Mina, is that one of Midoriya's notebooks?" Yes, it is." "How? Why? What are you doing with that?" Jirou questioned her friend, trying to figure out what exactly she was doing with the book. Everyone in class was aware of Midoriya's habit of writing down and taking notes on new and interesting quirks that he'd come across. Although it seemed a bit weird to the majority of the class at first, it actually proved to be quite a useful tool when it came to practical training. It was assumed that he had notes on everyone in the class. "I had Toru swipe for me earlier today in class while I distracted him." "Okay, but why do you have it?" "Because silly, this is part 1 of my super awesome plan to get you a date with our resident shy boy." "What?" "Yup. I'm pretty sure that he has something on everyone in the class, and from what your Raka told me, it has some of his personal thoughts as well. Once we read what he said about you, we can find out if he likes you or not and go from there. Also, I kinda wanna see what he wrote about me." "Mina, this is such a major invasion of privacy. How could you do something like this?" The irony in Jirou's words was almost comical, seeing as she was an even worse offender at sticking her nose in the quirk inheritor's business. "Don't worry kyoka, we'll give it back once we're done with it. We'll just tell him that it fell out during class or something." "That's not the point. These notebooks aren't meant for other people to see, it doesn't matter what the reason was, it's still not cool." "But how are we supposed to get you a date if we have nothing to go on?" "Mina, I thought I told you and Momo to let that stupid idea of yours go." Jirou could feel her face getting hot. The trio hadn't talked about their little conversation since last Thursday. Jirou was able to put her foot down and convince her 2 classmates to drop the subject of her and Midoriya dating. She thought that was enough, but obviously it wasn't. "Don't be like that kyoka, we're just trying to help you out." "How is stealing Izuku's notebook helping me out?" "Oh come on, you can't tell me that you aren't at least a little bit curious as to what he's written about you." Jirou paused for a second. She'd be lying to herself if she said that she wasn't somewhat interested in seeing what was written on the pages of the slightly burned notebook in front of her face. If his maths notes were anything to go on, then the information within those pages was probably very detailed. She did wonder what he possibly could have written about her. From what she could tell, the green-haired boy was always jotting down something in those books, which meant that he probably updated it every chance he got. He was even known to write stuff down on their teachers from time to time. Oh no, what if he has something about All Might and One for All in there? The thought swept past Jirou's mind along with a shiver that came down her spine. Would Midoriya really be careless enough to have information about his quirk just lying around somewhere that even Ashido and Hagakure could access? No, he was smart enough to cover his tracks pretty well when it came to his quirk, but if there was even anything close to a clue, then it could lead to something getting out. Without a moment's hesitation, Jirou grabbed the paper-backed object from Ashido's hands and clenched it tightly between hers. "Hey." Ashido protested as she saw her classmate clutch the notebook. "Nope, I'm going downstairs to give this back to Izuku." "Honestly Mina, between you and Kaminari, I swear you two never think sometimes," Jirou said as she turned around and walked out the door to make her way to the second floor where Midoriya's room was. She didn't take the time to look back at her pink-skinned classmate to notice the smile that crept back onto her face. As she took a second to let out a chuckle, Ashido took out her cell phone and began typing. Xenomorph. Yeah, Momo. Operation Meetup is a go. Encyclopedia. Alright, I still can't believe you convinced Toru to go along with this. Does she know what's going on? Xenomorph. Nah, I told her that I'd tell her what was written in Midoriya's notebook if she went along with it. She doesn't have a clue. Encyclopedia. Awesome. Encyclopedia. Hey Mina. Xenomorph. Yeah. Encyclopedia. Did you make sure the Midoriya was even here before you set the plan into motion? God damn it. Ashido let out as she realized that it completely slipped her mind. It was such a crucial part to the plan, and she didn't even consider it before pulling the trigger. Hey Tsu, have you seen Izuku anywhere? No, Jirou. Isn't he in his room? No, I just checked, and he wasn't. Do you know where he might have gone? Sorry, but I don't. I overheard him and Iida talking about going on a run earlier, so I guess that's where he might be. Oh alright, thanks anyway. Don't mention it. Hey Jirou-chan, are you and Midoriya-chan dating, Jirou? The frog-themed hero asked. The girl was known for her usually blunt way of going about things, but the words just came out of her mouth, caught the earphone jack user completely off guard. So bad that her cheeks immediately turned pink upon hearing the question. What? No. Why would you even ask me something like that? Well, she began as she placed her finger onto her chin, a habit that her classmates were used to seeing. You two have been spending a lot of time around each other, although I haven't seen you together since last week. Also, you're holding one of his hero notebooks. I know that those are pretty important to him, so you having it would make one suspicious. He dropped it earlier, and I was going to give it back to him, that's all. The purple-haired girl stuttered as she fumbled through an explanation as to why she was holding the notebook at her hip. The gaze of her classmate wasn't helping her either, even though Asui was very open about her feelings, her face was almost always unreadable. Alright then, just asking. Echako-chan was starting to get worried. Why would she be worried? It's pretty obvious that she has a crush on him, and you two spending so much time together had her thinking that was the case. No matter, see you later. Yeah, you too. The frog quirk user gave a quick wave before walking off into the direction of the kitchen, leaving Jirou by herself in the hallway. Yuraraka likes Izuku, well I can't say I'm surprised. Of course she'd like a cute guy like him. Jirou's thoughts once again went to a place where she had no idea where they came from. Ah, what the hell. Why do I keep thinking of stuff like this? She cursed herself internally once again at her own thoughts. Izuku is just a friend, that's it. You know what, I'm just going to hold on to this until he gets back. I need to go take a nap. I must say Midoriya, you're surprisingly fast. Thank you Iida-kun, but I'm still no match for you. If we were able to use our quirks then it would be an even showing. Maybe, who knows, one day I might actually beat you in a race. Midoriya said. The two boys laughed as they removed their shoes at the building entrance. For the majority of the last hour Midoriya and Iida spent their time doing long-distance running and sprint drills. The green-haired boy found that it was a great way to help train his legs to better utilize his shoot style. Although Midoriya did enjoy the training, he wasn't completely focused as he would like to have been. Before he left out of his room he realized that he had misplaced his hero notebook and had no clue as to where it could have gone. Luckily the boy had the foresight to not write anything down involving All Might or One for All in its pages, just in case of a situation like this. Either way it still worried him, he had spent a particularly long amount of time working on that specific version. Deciding to worry about it after a shower and a meal he went back upstairs to his room, not before giving the engine quirk user a goodbye, while Iida stayed downstairs to talk to Mineta about something that happened earlier today in class. Whatever it had to be, Midoriya knew that it wasn't going to be decent. As he was mere steps away from the door to his room, Midoriya heard the sound of a familiar voice calling his name. Hey Izuku. He turned around to see Jirou giving a fast-paced walk from down the hall, noticing his missing notebook was in her right hand. Ioka, is that my notebook? Yeah, it fell out of your bag before you left class. She replied to the quirk inheritor. Although she was still angry with Ashido for taking it in the first place, she decided against dimming out her horned classmate to avoid any future problems. Really? I guess I need to be more careful then. Yeah, don't worry though, I found it before anyone else. I didn't look at the pages either. Well thanks for that. No problem. She said as handed the book over to him. He gave her a smile before checking over it to make sure that all of the pages were in good condition, relatively speaking. Unfortunately for Jirou, that smile was enough to cause a tinge of pink to appear on her face. So how'd you do on the quiz today? Midoriya's voice was enough to snap her back into reality. Huh? The maths quiz, how'd you do? I know we haven't studied together in a few days, so I was just wondering. Being honest, pretty bad. Oh, I guess that means I didn't do a good job of helping you out then. Sorry. It wasn't your fault dude, I didn't really go over anything this weekend and I at least knew everything that you went over with me. So if it wasn't for you I might have done even worse. But I still feel bad for not helping you out. I was spending the weekend with my mom so I wasn't here to help. Hey, I know. Do you want to study again tomorrow? Tomorrow? Sure, why not? Awesome. The broccoli-headed boy exclaimed as a smile once again lit up his face, once again causing some blush to form on her cheeks. As she tried to look away her eyes noticed the fact that he was still sweaty from his afternoon run with Ida. Just enough so that she could make out the outlines of his abs and chest underneath the damp gray shirt that he was wearing. Has he always been that ripped? She thought internally as she scanned over his torso once again. Once she realized what her mind had been doing, Tsuyu's words replayed in her head. It's pretty obvious that she has a crush on him and you two spending so much time together had her thinking that was the case. Jirou's face was now redder than a tomato and the room was starting to get unusually warm for her. The fact that her heartbeat was increasing wasn't helping either. Hey Kyoka, are you okay? The boy asked with obvious concern on his face. What? Yeah, I'm fine. I just remembered that there's something that I need to do and I'll see you later. She stuttered out, turning on her heels to exit the hallway as quickly as she could, leaving Midoriya confused as he opened the door to his room. As the purpled-haired girl sat down at her desk, she did her best to calm herself down. She all but sprinted up the stairs to try and get away from Midoriya less than a minute ago, and now she was winded from the short journey. While she let her heart calm down, she tried to rationalize what exactly just happened. Why did she get so worked up out of the blue like that? She's seen guys shirtless before, that wasn't anything new. Hell, she saw every guy in her class topless when they used the school pool that day before summer camp. So why did seeing Midoriya like that cause her brain to go haywire? Unfortunately for the earphone jack user, the more she thought about the more flustered she got. Deciding that she needed a distraction from her own mind, Jirou grabbed one of the guitars that lined the walls of her room, along with a few pages of sheet music out of her desk. Maybe this will help me take my mind off of whatever the hell it is that I'm thinking. Thanks for watching my video and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic, link is in the description. See you next time, till then sayonara.